23rd of this year marked the day in which the British people decided enough is enough. The British people decided to turn their backs on their European counterparts and exit the EU. Today, what I'm going to do is look at Brexit from the beginning. I'm going to be analysing what Brexit means to me, what it means to you, what it means to the country, what it means to the economy, and what it means for the future. Stay tuned. This is One Man's Opinion.
Audio Jungle.
Good evening. My name is Azeez Quadry and welcome to One Man's Opinion.
Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.
Like I said, we're going to start from the beginning. And if I think back to where the beginning is, I could go as far back as 2010, but I'm not going to go that far back. I'm going to go as far back as 2015 during the elections in Britain. David Cameron, leader of the Conservative Party, running for a second term against Ed Miliband, against Nigel Farage of the UKIP party. During that time, David Cameron started to get a lot of backlash from members of the Conservative Party. He had a lot of Eurosceptic people in his party, and when I say Eurosceptic, I mean those that didn't believe that our position in the EU was a good one, those that wanted us to leave the EU. Growing pressures on him to introduce some sort of law or to go to the EU and figure out some sort of deal that will put Britain in a better position within the EU. At the time, he even had two members of his party decamp, go from Conservative to UKIP party. David Cameron, running for a second term, promises a referendum if he wins a majority. Now, at the time, he actually didn't believe he was going to win a majority, or he didn't think he was going to win a majority. Obviously, the party before was a coalition party, a coalition between the Conservatives and the Lib Dems. And if it had been another coalition come 2015 and he had introduced a referendum to his deputy, they would have just thrown it out. Now, fortunately and unfortunately for him, he wins a majority. He becomes the sole Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, where he's not joined with another party. He's got the majority in the House. I mean, they wanted to do things such as get rid of the European human rights and bring in the British Bill of Rights, and the only way you can do that is by exiting the EU. A promise is a promise, right? So David Cameron fulfills his promise, and he said, I am going to pose a question to the British people: should we stay or should we leave the European Union? This is after he travelled to Brussels to renegotiate Britain's place within the Union. He manages to get a deal that works out for him in one way and doesn't really work in another way. I mean, he manages to get something sorted, such as immigration and such as people come into the UK and claiming benefits. He manages to, put a time restraint on that. However, this wasn't enough for the British people. This wasn't enough for members of his party. David Cameron starts campaigning for the Remain side. And when I say the Remain side, I mean those that want to remain in the EU. He mentions security, he mentions trade as the fundamental reasons why staying in the EU are crucial. And then he starts to get some opposition from a person that he's known for a very long time, Boris Johnson. Now, Boris Johnson has come off the back of London Mayor. He's looking up and thinking, what's next? What's next in his political career? If he joins David Cameron with the Remain side, he will probably be under the Prime Minister's shadow. He won't really have the opportunity to express his views. All the interviews that he's going to give are probably going to be with the Prime Minister. So what does Boris Johnson do? He heads up the Vote Leave side. He heads up the Vote Leave side with Michael Gove, and they start campaigning around the country that we should leave the EU. They campaign that we should take our country back.
And if we vote leave and take back control, I believe that this Thursday can be our country's Independence Day.
They campaigned that we pay 350 million a week to the EU. That money can go towards the NHS. And of course, Nigel Farage, being the person that he is, absolutely jumps on this. Let me fast forward a little so I don't bore you guys. They campaign and the day finally comes, June the 23rd, where the question was put to the British people, excuse me, and over 17 million people voted to leave. Now, on June the 24th, I woke up, and we woke up in the same Britain, but let me assure you, it was a completely different day. It felt like a different atmosphere. It felt like tension had risen. The immigration was becoming more and more of a problem, and racism started to come out. Racism that we know it's still there, but hadn't been around or hadn't been an issue for a very long time. On the morning of June the 24th, as you all know, David Cameron resigned as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He said that he would hold power until someone else took his place. This opened up a leadership contest in the Conservative Party, in which Theresa May, I'm not going to tell you those that were part of it, just know that Boris Johnson was not part of that, but Theresa May emerges as Prime Minister. And in her first speech, after she emerges as Prime Minister, she says Brexit means Brexit. Let's take a minute to think about that.
Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it. Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.
She says Brexit means Brexit, suggesting that the British people have spoken, the British people have voted, we are going to exit the EU no matter what. Now, I'm just going to pause there because I want to put my opinion. I want to interject my opinion. I believe that Brexit means Brexit. Obviously, she's trying to say that no matter what, we're going to leave the European Union. However, I don't think she's thinking about whether this is the best thing or this is the best position for the country. What she's trying to do is fulfill what the people have said. Now, just in case a lot of you don't know, the referendum that was held back in June, it is not binding. The only reason why you propose a referendum is to simply gauge public opinion. If a referendum comes back with something that you don't like, you don't have to fulfill it. So I just want to pose a question to you guys really quickly. Feel free to comment, feel free to, shoot us back with your answers. The referendum wasn't binding. It was just a consultation. However, we're treating it like it was a binding piece of document. We're treating it like the vote leave that has happened has to go forward. What do you think? Do you think it should stay as a non-binding interjection, non-binding public opinion, or we should treat it the way we're treating it now? The way the Prime Minister is saying Brexit means Brexit, no matter what, we're leaving. That's a question for you guys. You already know my opinion on that. So let's look at what's happening today, guys. This is what I really wanted to get my opinion out there. A group of business people have come together and they've taken the case to court. They've said that the government doesn't have the right to bring us out of the EU without Parliament's vote. Whereas the government has said that they have royal prerogative to be able to trigger Article 50 without Parliament's vote. Now, Article 50, in the simplest of terms, let's call it a button. The moment you push that button, you've got a 2-year timeline to figure out some sort of deal of exiting the EU. After that 2 years, I believe, I am going to check it up for you. After that 2 years, I believe that if you do not have a deal, you have to come out of the EU anyway. That is what Article 50. These business people are hoping that this vote is going to go to Parliament. Why? Because there are more Remainers than Brexiters in Parliament. This case is still currently in court. Tune in. I will continue to feed you on what's going on there. The next notion I want to bring up is this idea of soft Brexit and hard Brexit. And this is something else that you're also going to hear a lot. A soft Brexit looks like this. We come out of the EU, but we stay in the single market. The single market is basically the market where all 28 member states trade with one another. It makes trade easier. It makes security easier. It's basically an easier way of all countries interjecting with one another without having to go through other channels. That's what the single market is. Now, back to my soft and hard Brexit. In a soft Brexit, what that looks like is us coming out of the EU but remaining in the single market. Take a minute to think about that. And in a hard Brexit, that looks like us coming out of the EU and coming out of the single market. Now, I voted to remain. However, with everything that's going on, I don't agree with a soft Brexit, and I'll explain why to you. Let's take the example of Switzerland, for instance. Switzerland are not a country that's in the EU. They're not an EU member state. However, they are a country in the single market, and they pay into the single market so that they can trade with all 28 member states within the EU. When all 28 member states come together, sit down, and formulate laws that will benefit all member states, Switzerland are not at that table. They're not at that decision-making table. Meaning, no matter what laws that people come up with, no matter what laws that all 28 member states propose, Switzerland have to take it without having a say. And in a soft Brexit, that's what that looks like. If we come out of the EU and we remain in the single market, we won't have a seat at the decision-making table. We won't have a representative in Brussels. We won't have somebody fighting our corner. And then obviously, you know what a hard Brexit is. Naturally, a hard Brexit means us coming out of the EU, us coming out of the single market. This means we're going to have to go to each country individually to figure out some sort of trade deal with them. I feel like I've been rambling on, so I'm just going to sum up what's got this Brexit issue for you right now. And I'm going to continue to update you on what's going on. We voted out of the European Union, and at the moment, we need to trigger Article 50. Theresa May has said that will be done by March 2017. So essentially, we now have a timeline to come out of the EU, that being March of 2019. We don't know what the trade deal is going to look like. We don't know whether we're going to remain in a single market or not. We don't know whether the vote is going to go to Parliament or not. We don't even know whether there's going to be another general election to give Theresa May the proper mandate to bring us out of the EU or not. There's a legal battle, there's a political battle, there's a financial crisis. We've got countries like Russia making they're making strategic moves. They're placing themselves in strategic places in the world while we're fighting to leave the European Union. In my opinion, in today's day and age, the true form of sovereignty means having a seat at the table. And if we leave the European Union, we are giving up our seat at the table. Stay tuned, and I will continue to update you on what's going on with Brexit. Sadly, my co-host couldn't be here tonight. She will be here next time, I promise you that. It's not just going to be my opinion. It's not just going to be me talking scenery. I'm going to have someone here with me, and we're going to bring on a lot of other people as well. We want to hear from you. If you think, or if you want to relay your opinion to the people, contact me. Come and join me. Let's have a conversation. Let me hear what you think. Let me hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining us. Good night.